Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day. Jennifer is grateful for the opportunity to educate, empower, and inspire you with powerful conversations, insights, and new viewpoints. Here's your host, Jennifer J. Hammond.
This is Jennifer Hammond, and I'm so excited. One of the most important things is how to have a healthy home. So I'm so excited about this episode. And my guest who's joining us, yay, she's a doctor, Dr. Erica Steele. So welcome, Dr. Erica Steele.
Your energy is infectious.
I was going to say, and you are so good. I was going to say, one of the other things I always look for is how to find the yay in today. And you immediately, you can just tell. And I think it's also partly because of what you do. You do it from a very holistic viewpoint.
Exactly. Body, mind, spirit. Mm-hmm.
It includes your spirit and your energy, however you define that. Everybody defines it a little bit differently, but that's so important to having a healthy home. And so, my main focus for many years has been real estate. And so I wanted to kind of start with that. But I first want to start, so people know a little bit. You are a board certified naturopath doctor, but you have a very specific and amazing passion to help bring care back into healthcare. And you're not just a typical doctor. And I love that because one of the things that I found from my mom was also very interested in always finding the root of things rather than just treating the symptoms. And I think that that's one of the things that is so missing in healthcare today is, not just finding a prescription drug and trying to deal with some symptoms, which of course then give you other bad symptoms. And it's just a really bad cycle. But let's start with, first of all, I think people should know why did you decide this to be your path, this crazy path?
Oh my gosh, I know. Yeah. And that's such a big conversation, right? But short of it, right? Child of two Marines. My mother had a psychotic break when I was really young, around 8 years old, right? And allopathic traditional medical, it helped stabilize, but it didn't really help heal, right? And so, her bathroom looked like a Walgreens pharmacy. And I grew up watching all of this. I was I'm practicing Native American. So I grew up learning that there was a world that you could prove or disprove, but there was also a world that you could prove in science because my mother was in healthcare, right? My stepmom was also in healthcare. She was a geneticist. My mom went to medical school and actually took me with her or went to her undergrad. And so I got to experience organic chemistry and lab this and lab that. And so I was immersed in the hard sciences, but then also going to acupuncture and Reiki attunements and rebirthings with my mom, right? All before the age of 12. So it was totally infused. So I ended up leaving my house at 16 because it was just really hard, with a mother is ill and all the dynamics, right? I decided, I was look, I want to be a healer. I want to help other people heal. And I really want to understand the human condition. And so I sought out the little, the classical little with the stick and the, I sought out and I was like, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. So, 6 degrees, 19 years later, over 30,000 patients, here I am with you today. Yeah. Right.
Wow. So I have to tell you, first of all, I got goosebumps a few times while you were saying that. We have so many similarities, and I know I don't know you that well, but it's amazing. One, I studied a lot with the Native American traditions because, again, I was so fascinated, and so many of the mainstream religions and such would never talk about spirit, and I was absolutely fascinated. And I studied with a bunch of different organizations and tribes, and I can't believe you. I've really had an amazing opportunity. I'm not saying too much. I know so much goes on in the spiritual realm, and that's also part of what our process, at least in my viewpoint, and I'm sure it sounds like you, is our path of healing. And it's interesting because my mother, now this is a family secret, and I know I've never said this on radio or a podcast before, so here is my big reveal, but I feel so compelled to say this with you, and I feel so safe, which I guess is one of the things
Yeah.
My mother, when she was in Washington, D.C., she had fallen in love with this gentleman, and he asked her, well, he asked her to marry him. But first thing he did was go, of course, to her father and ask for her hand in marriage. And not to go down this rabbit hole too far, but basically her father was an immigrant who'd moved here with nothing, and just decided that he did not want his daughter to marry. Well, they were in the business of death. They owned a funeral home, and she didn't, and you can see that from a dad's point of view, if you don't want your daughter to be around death the rest of your life. But for her, that was the love of her life, she thought. And she told me this story, I don't know how many times. Yeah. And so she had, so David committed suicide.
Wow.
And then she decided, she was very dramatic. She had her hair done and got in a ball gown, did her makeup, and wrote her dad a letter. Ironically, mail was delivered twice a day back then. So she wrote it in the morning, mailed it, drank a bottle of vodka and a bunch of pills, and had a psychotic break. And she was trying to commit suicide, but she ended up in a mental ward in St. Elizabeth's in Washington, D.C. And I think that when she did come out of it, which is why I'm here, because I am her daughter. But it's interesting because when she talked about it, one of her reasons for naturopath and why she was always looking for a way to heal is she believed that we came this lifetime, each of us in our lifetime, to heal past wounds as well as to be healers, each one of us. Exactly. Anyway, I with you talking your mother and sharing that story, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. But it's one of those.
Yeah. Well, there's so much so another thing, like really, I had all these gems growing up, right? And I think if we look at all of our experience in life as like gems, these little hidden gems that we have. So we talk about the home, like my mother was also really big in AA and NA. So she did like all kinds of like drug rehabilitation stuff in our house. She also did hospice in our home.
Oh, wow.
So I was surrounded, and I remember walking to the beach and, really young and finding my first dead body. Right.
Oh my gosh.
A guy had committed suicide. Right. So, but I attribute that to like really being comfortable with that spirit realm and really being comfortable with the fact that, this life is finite. It's not infinite. Our spirit is infinite and will go on. Right. But like, when we're here, we need to make the best of it and having the tools necessary to do that. Right. One of the things with having such a diverse background for me has been about resilience. Right. Yeah. And it's like, unfortunately, bad things are going to happen, bad things, whatever you want to call it. But it's what we do with these things. Right. So like out of that really traumatic, and I'm so sorry for your mother. I know what a loss like that feels like. I lost a dear partner of mine in 2016. And literally it feels like a piece of your soul leaves.
Yep.
And you're left with like, what am I supposed to do? Fortunate for me, I had my business, I had my daughter, and I had to be like baby steps. Like remember, like What About Bob? I don't know. If
I love What About Bob? Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. Oh my gosh. I laughed with my dad. It was one Thanksgiving, whatever Thanksgiving that year it came out. And we laughed and we'd go around baby steps, baby steps.
Yes. And that's what it was. Every day was like baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. So for your mom, it was like the same thing. And for all of us, it's like the same thing, right? Yeah. It's like we get rocked to the core. And then it's like, okay, what am I going to do now? What's my plan of action? Like my baby step, like the first day was like, get out of the house, right? Like I totally, and we don't have a lot of time, but when like the credit card machines like go awry, there's some like issue with so anyway, so like, I was able to get through the grocery store just fine. And then like, we get to the counter and like, they're like, oh, we're having issues with our credit card machine. Right. And I'm like, okay, like I literally have 2 minutes before, and it's coming up. And the grief just like, and I'm like bawling like Yoko Ono after John Lennon died in the middle of the grocery store. And people are like, what's going on, right? But it's like that raw, authentic emotion, right?
Yeah.
It's so important to really connect with. And I think we as human beings, we try to avoid it because we want to look good and we want to like, seem like we have it all together and yada, yada, yada. But in reality, we all feel and we all feel so deeply. And I think it's important for us to really just own that and own how we feel. The other thing to kind of tie it in is that our surroundings, right? Our surroundings really play into how we feel.
Yeah.
Right? So like, for instance, it's so funny, right? I've had a ton, like, I don't know what it is, but over the years, I have bought all of these pictures of like this single strong woman standing on something, like strong woman on the beach, strong single woman here, strong single woman there. And finally, when I started to learn about Feng Shui and learn about like how all of our environments impact us, right? I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to create and manifest a relationship, but I've got all these affirming like single strong woman,
Yep.
the Rosie the Riveter thing, like
Exactly.
all this stuff, but I'm seeing it every single day, and it's unconsciously just tying myself energetically to all of these commitments that I enjoyed at one point, but then wanting to break out of.
And I was going to say, and that's part of why I wanted to have the conversation about creating a healthy home is not just, I've had the topic I've talked about before, and, is your home killing you? Oh my goodness. And that's part of, there's toxic paints and toxic things, fabrics you can have around your house, and off-gassing of cabinets, kitchen cabinets, and all sorts of terrible things in your environment that people don't even think about. But also part of the reason I was so excited to have this conversation with you about creating a healthy home is it's about creating it. It's not like just letting it just happen. It's about figuring out and creating it. And what is it that makes you feel powerful, but again, that doesn't cut you off from your own strength. And like you said about the images of the single woman, hear me roar, I'm amazing. And you shouldn't move away from, that kind of.
Like, that's a little intimidating when you're trying to bring in a man.
Yeah.
It's like single, it's like, what's going on here? Like, do you really even need me? Is there room? Is there space?
Yeah.
And so I think our environment, for sure, I think so many people just kind of fall in, right? It's like, oh, this fits in my budget. Yeah. Or like, well, this is in the school district I want to be in, but they don't actually like walk into the space and feel it. Like, how does it feel to you? Right. So being connected to those raw emotions, it's like, I have to like, I'm very like tactile. Like I got to get in there. Like, how does it feel to like, can I see myself coming home to this? Can I see myself like vibing on the neighborhood? Can I feel myself waking up here every single day? Like, and then from there, like it just blooms, right? Because then the home, especially in classical Feng Shui, the home will talk to you, right? Yeah. So then it'll be like, oh, I need a picture here. I need like, it's so funny.
And so talk about that though quickly. So define classical Feng Shui for anybody who doesn't know what it is. I, of course, have studied it a bit, but I think it's really important that we always define when we start talking about a concept.
Yeah, I'm so glad you grabbed onto that. So classical Feng Shui is actually, it's hard to explain, but I will say this. It's a combination between mathematics and energy and nature. Like it's all rolled into one, right? So there's number grids, it's based off of your birthday. It's based off of positions in the home, the directions, compass readings. There's all kinds of different numbers and numerology that's kind of involved with it as well. So not to kind of digress into that, but there's a lot of structure to it, which I really like, right? So it's like, oh, there is this tactile, scientific base, right? Like I'm always into, like, it's got to have the logic and then it can have all the woo-woo, right? So it's got that, right? And then on top of it, it's like, it's an energy and a free flow, and it combines all the nature elements, right? So it's about bringing the outside inside, which nature is very calming, very soothing, very relaxing, very, like for instance, I'm an air energy. I'm a Aquarius, right? So I could like float all over, right? So I have a lot of earth in my home. I have a lot, especially because I have high ceilings. things. So I have a lot of like emerald greens on the couches and things like that ground me and keep me in there, right? Anything behind you actually supports you. So I have this giant like galaxy because the universe, I want to support me, right? So it's all of these like mechanisms, right, that reaffirm what it is we want. And then there's bagwas, which are just areas of the home, right? So you've got the creative center, you've got the self-intuitive, you got travel, helpful people, you've got prosperity, love, relationship. You pretty much got your whole life kind of gridded out. And then you put all of these little things that remind you, right? So it's like love and relationships. I have a little bowl of all of these little hearts, right? All these different hearts I've collected from all these different places, right? These little stones, right? And it's so nice. It just reminds me, oh, yay. Whenever I look at it, I'm like, oh, yay, filled with love, right? I know, exactly. So,
So talk about the other thing that many people miss when they're looking to create a healthy home is some of the elements like fire, water. What are some ways that people can actually apply this right now to create a healthy home?
So fire, definitely red, right? You don't want it in the kitchen because there's a lot of fire in the kitchen already, right? You don't want water in the bathroom because there's a lot of water already. So you want earth in the bathroom. So like I put little rocks in my sink to ground things, right? With little sayings on it, which are really fun. Yeah. Fire things also have shapes too, right? So like spiky things, are kind of that fire energy, but also reds and things like that. But you want to be careful with your reds because, it can create a little bit of anger. Like you don't want it in a bedroom, especially if you're in a relationship, then it's like everybody's feuding, and just little subtle things. Like you don't want workout equipment in your bedroom because then it's like relationships or work, right? Yeah. There's so much I can like unpack with this, right? But then we also combine it with this concept of like natural things, right? So if I'm putting all this work in, right? When I buy my bed, like let's say I need to buy a new bed, right? Now it's great because you can get toxic free beds for super cheap. Like years ago, like they were ungodly expensive, but now with all the demand, people are buying cheaper things, but it's brought the supply and demand down, right?
Right.
And so it's also about being conscious, right? Yeah. What do I want to create? What do I want to intend? Right. And how do I want to fulfill upon that? And it's not just like falling into it like, well, my sister, passed down this couch. So, I feel guilty. So I'm going to keep it. Right. Even though it's hideous and I hate it. It's like, no, like, okay, I this doesn't really, because every time you look at it, you're going to be like, I hate this thing. So that's not going to work. Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of, we have, earth elements. We have metal too, which is really fun. I love like metal accents. Water, like, you do things like little fish tanks and things of that, fountains, running water. Because anywhere where there's running water, that's a flow of energy, right?
Right.
And then in classical feng shui, if you get really deep into it, not every home is perfect, right? Just like every human being is not perfect. So you do have to put remedies and things like that involved with it. And you can, play with it based off of what you want. So like I wanted love relationships. I definitely wanted more of my celebrity to kind of expand. Here we are on your show, right? And then also wanting to build more in the prosperity. So I spent a lot of time cultivating those particular areas and creativity. And it's just, once you get into it, it's like so much fun.
It's like a game. It's so much fun. And again, I think that's also part of it is putting that happy energy of playing a game. That is one of the most powerful things in the whole universe is that spirit of play and just looking at it in that kind of happy way. Well, I know we're just about out of time, but I want to make sure that people can get a hold of you. I know we didn't talk about what the main thing you do, which being a naturopath and doctor, but will you tell people how can they get a hold of you if they wanted to?
Yeah, so I'm a holistic doctor in family practice. I treat little kids all the way up to elderly, ear infections, all the way up to stage 4 cancers, everything else in between. And we look at all aspects. So we look at environment and how that impacts as well as everything else. So you can always check me out online, holisticfamilypracticeva.com. I'm on Instagram, Holistic Family Practice, as well as Dr. Erica Steele. Facebook as well, Dr. Erica Steele. I think it's like call Dr. Steele, something like that. Yep. And then also on Holistic Family Practice. So I'm everywhere. If you Google Steele, like, and I love energy, right? So like the people literally, like they find me. So, it's just the way it goes.
Which is perfect. And I'm so glad that we're connected now. And I look forward to next time. Yay! I love it. Thanks for sharing. Oh, thanks for sharing about your story. Thanks for sharing your tips and tricks to how to create a healthy and happy. Both of those are important. Healthy and happy home. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And as I say every single episode, find a way to make someone else smile. I am Jennifer. Thank you.